There you go. Pull that microphone. There you go.
There we go. Now
We're back.
We're back. Number 4. Man, everybody watching today, it's just Eric and I this time. We decided to just stick to the two of us today. It's going to be story time a little bit today, going over some things that we've encountered here recently, and thought we'd talk about this stuff. And I think probably after the first of the year, it'll parlay a little bit more into real estate, and their perspective more so than ours when it comes to roofing. But today we kind of wanted to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of real estate. And it's going to be good cop, bad cop. And today I'm going to be bad cop because a couple of interactions I've had recently and then not so recently, a couple of things that I wanted to go over that really affect the transaction when it comes to a home and with relation to the roof. One specifically last week that was unique for me. And then one a couple of years ago that was a really bad situation for a homeowner. And just people don't know. So I think these stories will somewhat educate, things to look out for, right, when you're going into this. And I know the market's a little bit different right now, but no better time to learn about things that could be pitfalls than right now when maybe you're thinking about it in the future or whenever it may be.
I'm really excited. We're going to start talking trash about people. This is going to be fun.
Man, yeah. We're going hard on people. Yeah. This may be the last episode.
This could be it. It could be 4 and done.
Yeah. But then Eric, on the other hand, he's got some stories, and we've had plenty of these. I mean, more often than not, things can go really, really well. So he has a couple of stories of good things that happen and interactions we've had with realtors and homeowners, right, to help them through the process where it really ended up, best for all parties. So anyway. So that's where we're going with that today. But it's Christmas time. It's almost here. Yeah. It feels like Honolulu outside today. Strangely enough, I think it's pushing 80 degrees in December. So here
I think tomorrow the cold front comes in.
Will it stay here until
probably
March?
Not. No, probably not.
I've kept hearing that we're going to have like the coldest winter ever, but
it's looking like
it's
so
almost
far.
80.
I mean, I picked corduroy today by accident. I went outside. I was like, ooh,
I know. I got the vest back on, and I'm like, oof, man, I did not need this today.
Yeah. Well, you're representing the company.
That's
well,
right.
So yeah,
it's on this side.
There it is. Speaking of the company, our company is we're growing. So we've hired a couple of guys in the past couple of weeks, which has been fun. Yeah. So one of the stories I'm going to tell here shortly, I had one of our guys out with us. I was like, this is going to be a great learning experience, and turned into not so much, I guess, at least from a roofing standpoint and learning what's on a roof. But anyway, things are fun and looking good, and we're excited about the end of the year and even more so about the first of the year. So here we go. So again, back to real estate. So I'm going to tell a specific story that happened to me a week ago today. And it's a really interesting deal because there's been multiple people that were involved in this. So we have a current homeowner who's looking to sell a property, right? And then we have another guy who's wanting to buy this property. So the other people involved in this are you have a couple of realtors, obviously. Then he has his insurance agent who's hoping to be able to write a policy on this specific property. So a lot of things happen prior to me even getting involved. One, there's the general inspection that took place on the home, and we see this every time. So an inspector goes out, he inspects the property from, interior, exterior, and this is a pretty steep roof. And we see this, probably 10 out of 10 times when it's a steep roof, your inspectors aren't really doing a super thorough inspection.
They're not walking the roof most of the time.
No. I mean, they might have a drone or something, take a few pictures, but typically the verbiage that you see in that inspection report is, we have identified some issues. However, we recommend you have a roofing professional come out and make a determination on, how good or bad this roof may be. So that had taken place on this specific roof. And I guess they had noted a few things. So the homeowner just preemptively went ahead and filed a claim on his roof. So he's with a carrier we won't name.
To be unnamed.
Yeah, but they came out and they said, there's no damage. Your roof is functioning fine. So as a homeowner, you're like, great, this is not going to hold up the sale. This is good. But the buyer had another roofing company other than us go out, take a look. And he said, no, this roof is in terrible condition. There's hail damage all over it. And the homeowner at this point is like, now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I've already had someone out here.
My insurance has been out here.
But this guy's like, no, man, it's got hail all over it. Well, the homeowner at that point says, well, we have a class 4 impact resistant roof. So we haven't had any hail big enough that's going to do damage to my roof. And we'll get a little bit into the impact resistant piece here in a minute. So at that point, the homeowner's already confused, not super happy. Well, then the homeowner, has another roofing company come out who happened to be the roofer who put this specific roof on his home. I believe it was 5 years ago. And I this is the piece that I really don't understand. But he said, no, your insurance company's correct. The roof is functioning as it should. And those were the words to him. And so to me, that's interesting. I mean, every roof is typically functioning as it should. But then, so at that point, the insurance agent that was working with this specific buyer said, hey, man, I'm getting conflicting information here. Could you go take a look, kind of be the final one who agrees or disagrees with whatever party? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll go out and take a look.
He said that to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is when we got the call.
Yeah. And so knowing full well, like I'm not getting this job, right? The homeowner already has a guy that he's worked with in the past, obviously trust, the seller doesn't have much control in this specific situation, and it's already contentious. So I go out, meet the homeowner immediately, and he is already a little bit standoffish, I guess you will. Yeah. He's like, look, man, I've got a class 4 impact resistant roof. I can handle 2-inch hail. So my roof should be fine. He's like, here, walk out in the backyard with me. Let's take a look at this roof from the ground.
Stand on the ground and look at the roof.
Yeah. Switch. We've talked about this. It's really hard to see stuff from the ground, but we go out on the back porch and I'm looking up and I'm like, ooh, I mean, I'm actually seeing some stuff. See it, yeah. And I'm like, look, you're probably right. You do have an impact resistant roof. I'm not aware of any significantly large hail that's hitting this area. But just so I can report back to them that, yeah, this is good. They won't have any trouble writing a policy on this. If I can just look at it with my own eyes so I can relay that message, that'd be great. And I'll be out of your hair in just a few minutes. He begrudgingly says, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do that. And so go out, grab the ladder. The homeowner goes with me. I throw my ladder up immediately. I'm like, oh my God, there's hail everywhere. And I'm not talking hail where you kind of have to look to find it. It's everywhere.
It's obvious.
And it's sizable. I mean, it's like maybe bigger than golf ball size stuff. And I'm just like, oh God, this is going to be a really bad situation.
This conversation.
So I stay up on the ladder and I'm just kind of touching stuff. And I'm like, all right, how are we going to do this? And so I start talking to the homeowner again.
Do you take pictures maybe and show it to him in that situation, or what do you?
I actually gave him the opportunity to come up on the ladder. And at that point he says, no, I've been up there. I've seen it. But the roof is functioning as it should, which again, somebody
really hung up on that,
fed him this information. And I said, from a really technical standpoint, if you had some sort of cosmetic waiver from an insurance policy, then if the matting's not broken, then technically, yes. But hail damage is hail damage. If those granules are missing and been impacted into the mat, it's hail damage, right? And it's going to continue to degranulate over time, right? I mean, we see it all the time. Yeah. We see hail damage from 5 years ago, and it sure as hell hadn't gotten any better. It
doesn't get better
over time, right? So he says, no, I've seen what you're talking about. I was like, well, let me just see if there's a couple more spots up here. And maybe this is just an area, and maybe I'm misdiagnosing, knowing full well I'm not.
It's obvious.
So I move on, and it's just everywhere. And when we are meeting an insurance adjuster out there, it's a 10 by 10 square. They want 12 hits, 15 hits. Who knows what it is today? It'll be different tomorrow probably, but it's easy. 20 hits in a square, and again, they're all bigger than a golf ball. And so I look down at the gentleman and I say, sir, I don't know what to tell you. This is totally unexpected based upon everything that you've told me, but your roof is blasted with hail, and I don't know what else to say. And he throws his hands up. He is furious. I don't know, with me, the situation, all of it, throws his hands up. It's like, well, I'm going to lose the sale now. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. He says, well, y'all can go. You can just go. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm sorry, but that.
So y'all didn't have a beer after that, or
we did not. I don't think I'm getting a Christmas card.
No high five.
I'm fairly certain of it. No.
Okay. All right.
So I mean, that's the worst case scenario, because one, I go back. Well, let's start with the roofer, right? The roofer who put that roof on. Why he wouldn't want to sell a new roof and fight this thing? I don't get that.
Do you think he was afraid of the customer himself? Like what he said about, I can't sell the house now. Like if there was anything there.
And so, and that's something we'll talk more about too, is because on real estate deals, you have typically a contractor who's representing the seller, and then you have a contractor who's representing the buyer.
Right.
And I think a lot of times they tell each what they want to hear, right? Not just being totally honest. Because that guy's motivated to sell. I think the house has been on the market for a little bit. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. And so these sort of things with the roof specifically, and when insurance is denying it, it's just going to drag that process out longer. Now there's ways you can get around it. Obviously you could just offer money at closing to the buyer and they can do that. But in this specific case, I mean, insurance is on the hook for this. And so that's the bigger thing with this one is the insurance company came out like a lot of them are doing right now. And in the beginning, they're just saying no. And so at that point, it becomes a fight. You know, we've got to go out, photo document the entire roof, show them what we're seeing. We've got to come up with an estimate. Then we have to send it into them, hoping it gets to the right desk. Then that person has to agree to send another adjuster out. And hopefully at that point you get the roof bought. But we're seeing it a lot now where that's not the final step.
Yeah.
You know, we're having to go to appraisal, and appraisal, you know, there's certain time constraints that they have to operate within just in getting back to you. But I think it's 30 or 60 days. And so that takes some time there. Then they have to agree to have that appraiser come out. You have to get on their schedule. So that can take months.
Right.
So we've seen appraisals take a year.
Yeah.
So obviously when you're trying to sell your home,
you don't have that kind of time.
That's a problem, right? So I understand the homeowner's frustration completely because, you know, and rightfully so, we talked about this last time too, is you're going to trust your insurance company that you've been with potentially for 20 years over a couple of contractors that you may or may not know telling you, no, you got damaged because you're just thinking they want to sell the roof. And so, I mean, I'm a totally independent party in this specific story because I know full well, like I told the homeowner this, like, look, I'm just out here as eyes. I know you have a relationship with your
got a contractor.
I'm not getting this. So I'm going to be 100% transparent, open, and honest with you, which I was.
Right. But I think insurance has changed a lot just in the last 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
And I used to, you trust your insurance guy, whatever. But now because they've gotten so tight on everything, that I think it's a harder thing to overcome.
It really is. Yeah. And so, but again, who do you trust in that situation, right?
I trust you, Cody.
Well, I wish everybody did, Mike, but that guy didn't know me. So you know, as upset as he was with me and as uncomfortable as that situation was, I felt bad for him because he really got put in a bad situation.
He's got 4 different people telling him 4 different things.
Absolutely. But it started with this specific adjuster who went out there and told him he didn't have damage. And man, I don't care if you've been roofing for a year, a month, a week. I could have never shown you a picture of hail. And you're like, holy crap,
what's wrong with
this hail?
What's wrong with this roof?
Yeah, what's going on? So it's just a really bad situation there. But again, it goes back to what we've talked about so many times is really having somebody you can trust. And, you know, not everybody's going to come to us. I wish they would. But man, you got to do your research and find people who are going to be honest with you and not tell you just what you want to hear.
Well, and on the transaction side, just from experience dealing with those, is that if you have a buyer that thinks there's roof damage and you have a seller that won't admit that that doesn't think that there's roof damage, then he's thinking he's not going to sell his house because there's roof damage. Whereas the buyer is just like, no, we'll buy the house. Just fix the roof.
Just fix the roof.
Just fix the roof. Yeah. But if you don't fix the roof, then we're not going to buy the house.
And that's kind of my story.
Yeah. And they can't really, because they're not going to be able to get insurance.
It'll be enough time.
Well, so what'll happen is the insurance company is going to write a policy for that house.
Yeah.
And then they're going to send an inspector out there after that policy's been taken into effect. And then that guy's going to say, well, you have 60, 90 days to get this taken care of. And this isn't a small repair. This is a whole roof. This is a big roof. I mean, we're talking, I think it was probably a 4,000 square foot house. So we're talking 80 squares. But again, it's the time that becomes so problematic. So yes, you could still close. And I'm speaking way out of school here with regard to the negotiations and the realtors and what all they can put in the contract. But y'all still could do that, and we carry it out, and we can still fight that fight for you. Just knowing if things don't go well, I guess, you know,
couldn't the seller's insurance company, couldn't they go out and say, okay, yeah, we're going to replace this roof, and then you still close, and it may take a little while.
Put it in the contract and have timelines out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, you know, let's say for whatever reason they can't make it work within the time constraints. Maybe they meet in the middle, and you know, there's just money involved, and we can still get the roof done, or whomever can get the roof done. But yeah, so that's the worst case scenario for both of them, because he's not getting an insurance policy. I told the guys, like, man, I personally, if I was buying this house, I couldn't do it.
I wouldn't buy it.
Just knowing full well that I'm going to have problems long term. And the other problem is, let's just, for hypothetical sake, say that insurance did go ahead and write you a policy. Well, then another year later, you have a hailstorm and you want to file a claim, and maybe it's small, but then they see all this other big stuff. So you would think hail's hail and we're going to write it. They're going to say, no, I'm sorry, that hail predated.
It doesn't correlate.
What you have now.
Exactly.
So sorry, you're out of luck. You're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. So there's just a lot of negative that can come from these situations. So, you got to trust your contractor. You got to trust the insurance carrier, which, as Mike said, it's really difficult right now because they have tightened up, but you got to be willing to fight the fight. And so we'll talk, I guess.
Well, that's why it's super important to get an insurance company and a rep based system. I mean, I tell people all the time when they're getting mortgages, don't go with the Geicos and the Progressives of the world, because when you're calling 1-800 numbers and you're trying to get stuff figured out that way, you got nobody fighting in your corner.
Yeah.
You have to have an agent.
Local
because
representation, right?
Like car insurance, whatever, but with your house, because it's all of the premium is built into that roof. I mean, that's what you're paying for when you pay for insurance. That's what you're paying for.
Yeah, no doubt. So having that in your corner is big. And because, we had Brad on last time, Brad would be the first one to go, look, we've got a sale going on here. We need to bump this up and we need to get somebody else's eyes on this. But knowing this specific carrier and how they work, this one's going to be a long haul for them.
It'll be drug out for a long time.
So anyway,
so the problem sounds like it's the insurance company, really, right? Because they won't admit, or they won't come to terms with the fact that there's serious damage on that roof.
Yeah, it's kind of the MO nowadays. You just hear no, there's no damage, hoping that homeowner or seller, buyer, whatever, goes away.
Yeah.
And then that's where we kind of step in and we can have that further conversation. We know the next steps. And again, in a real estate transaction, time is of the essence. Yeah. So sometimes you don't have that time. You got to extend things out. But
well, he's always going to have that problem. Any new buyer that comes along,
the next buyer is going to do the same thing.
And really, in that situation, I don't know who the people are involved in here, but the listing agent, the one that needs to be the one to tell him, hey, look, I've done this before. Yeah. We've been down this road. Yeah. It's your insurance. Your insurance is the problem.
Well, and again, I don't fully know about all the real estate disclosure and everything, but they've got multiple inspections now stating that there's roof damage.
Yes.
Right? And then, so that has to be turned over to any potential buyer. Yep. So it's out there. Whether that buyer has another contractor come in and look at it or not, it doesn't matter. It's been fully documented. So and that's the hardest part for people to understand when it comes to claims. Let's just assume it wasn't hail damage, right? It was just an old, degranulated, terrible roof. Just because an insurance adjuster says that roof is good, or
there's not storm damage.
There's not storm damage on it, so we're not paying for anything. That does not mean that roof is good. Right. So as a buyer, you have to be able to differentiate between the two. And so you have to have a contractor that's going to tell you, this roof is no good. I don't care what the insurance company says. Maybe there's not storm damage, but you have no granules on this roof, and it is going to fail.
Right.
And depending upon the carrier, they are not going to write you a policy based upon the condition of the roof. Let's take age out of it, right? Age is already a problem, which we've talked about ad nauseum. But if it just looks bad,
or just some carriers, if you have one missing shingle or a torn shingle, they can say we will not write this policy off one missing shingle.
Yeah. So the other piece before we get to maybe happier stories is, we talk to realtors a lot. We work with a number of realtors, and it's always difficult, I think, for them because they're up against it with option ending and all that. But the sooner we can get involved, if you're, going to list a house on the buyer side, the sooner you can get us out there, knowing full well that the inspector is going to say, well, you really should have a roofing contractor come look at this. Have us do it on the front end. Let's please give you an idea of what you're walking into. Because as Eric said, I mean, one shingle, they're not going to write a policy for you. It's going to have to be addressed. So you might as well know about it beforehand.
Well, and from the seller standpoint, you might not know, depending on the roof and the height or the, how it's cut up, you might not know that you have a missing shingle or a torn shingle.
Yeah, you can't
see
it.
You couldn't see it from the ground. You never know. And like Cody said, those inspectors are typically going to defer to a contractor of that field, whether it be an electrician, a plumber, or a roofer, to further inspect that or make repairs as needed. So having us out on the front end is crucial. If you know you're going to list a house, or the moment that you've got some interest from a buyer and there could be a potential contract, get us out there for your buyer's sake, just to be able to give that blessing or say, hey, there's probably some issues you need to look at, so you can start that negotiation early.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my first negative story. And
you guys said I was depressing. I don't know. Jeez.
But truly, I mean, that's the worst one I've ever walked into.
It was
really, just because it was so contentious from the beginning. They typically don't go that way. I mean, when we're going out on behalf of the buyer, there's always, a certain degree of, I don't trust you. Right.
Right.
And I totally get that.
Yeah. You guys are and criminals.
We're criminals. And we know that, again, representing the buyer, we have a very low shot at getting that job, simply because the seller, if there is insurance damage, they're likely to be referred to by somebody and their realtor, or they already know a roofer or whatever. So, and we get that, but my story is a slightly different. We had a realtor that we've worked with before, and she had a buyer, and it was a newlywed couple. They were buying their first home. They were super excited. Inspector came out, said the same thing. You've got some issues on the roof, and need to have a contractor come take a look at these. Probably need to have some repairs made. This particular realtor got with me early in the early part of the option period, which is always helpful. I was able to get out there that same day, and I called her and I was like, hey, there's hail damage all over this roof. It's all over the vents, all over the collateral, the soft metals, gutters, everything. So she starts negotiating with the seller's realtor. They filed a claim. Seller agreed to file a claim. I met them out there. It was a slow time of the year, so it helped that insurance was able to get out there pretty quickly. And I met them out there within a day or two. They kind of went really smooth. They agreed. They bought the roof, totaled it. And this particular realtor
I think this story is a total myth.
It's not.
They didn't come out.
They
and
did
do it right.
Same day. Well, actually, that adjuster, yes, it was totaled. Went to the desk, and then that person actually, they did agree, and they wrote the check. So it's real. I promise, it's real.
It can happen.
It can happen that way.
Don't lie to me, Eric.
I'll tell you.
I can't handle it emotionally. I can't handle it.
But so it was neat because the realtor, we've worked with this realtor for a while, and so she wrote us into the contract, and we were going to be the contractors. I was able to meet with the prospective buyers because they had, to your point earlier, Mike, they looked at it as being newlyweds buying their first home, and they were like, look, there's something wrong with the roof. Like, that was a huge red flag to them.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, we're not buying this house. Like, we're done. We're not buying this house. Like, we don't want anything to do with a bad roof of any kind. So, I was able to meet with them later in the process. They picked out shingles. They wanted to change the color of some stuff. So we were able to kind of go through that process. Super excited. And then we put a date, and like an install date. It was going to be a little bit beyond, it was after the option period, a little bit beyond closing, but we took care of it, and, everything worked out. It was, the new buyers were happy. I think the sellers were even, just glad that they didn't lose the sale, and were, able to get it done for both parties. So,
well, that's the world everybody's in right now with the real estate market. Is sellers are willing to do a lot of things because they want to make sure they can sell their house. And buyers, especially first-time buyers, are real skittish about stuff. Absolutely. And if you don't have a good realtor and you don't have good contractors that can explain and say, hey, look, it's foundation stuff. It happens all the time. People are like, oh my gosh, the foundation's ruined. We got to quit. It's like, no. Yeah. I mean, this is Texas. This happens. You can fix it. You
can make repairs, right?
Yeah. And the other piece of that too is, we talk about the buyer side, the seller side, how much we much prefer to work on the buyer side because we're involved from the beginning. It just makes it easier. And when you're on the seller side, on the buyer side, it's hard to get the contractor involved that you want. So let's assume you can't. There's a couple of really important things as the buyer that you want to know. You want to know, one, is that warranty going to transfer over to you? Right. You want that warranty, and you want to see that prior to buying the home, because we see that a lot where they just had two chucks in a truck go out and slap a roof on. There's no warranty at all. So the first leak you get, the first spring that you own that home, well, that's out of your pocket from the word go. Right. So that's super important. And, again, the shingle quality, are they out buying factory seconds, which that happens.
They're out there.
So there's just, you do want to have some involvement. I personally, when I bought my home, like, I wanted to know everything there was to know about the roof. How old is the roof? What is the shingle manufacturer? All that sort of stuff.
He made me walk that roof too.
I sure did.
Sure.
It would have been a conflict of interest.
Slave driver.
Yeah. I didn't make you. You volunteered.
That's true.
You were compensated for your time, sir.
Did you feel safe? Were you safe?
Yeah.
Show me on the doll.
Do you feel safe in this room right now?
Show me on the doll. Okay.
So don't, my point to all that is don't just say, okay, you're getting us a new roof, I'm happy. that's not good enough for something that you hope is going to last, 15 years and you don't have to deal with it. So look at that stuff. And, on our side, when we do work with the sellers, we like to work with them that will help get us involved in it. Try to do the roof for them, write us into the contract where we're the ones doing it. So they know, the buyers know, one, they have a relationship with us. They know they can call us. They know that the warranty is good.
Warranty. Yep.
Absolutely. They know the shingles we're using. We're putting the full Owens Corning roofing system up there. Right. So they truly know what they're getting. So yeah, main point of that is just be involved no matter what, no matter who's involved. Take a look at it all. Don't just pretend like it's not a big deal.
Well, and if you're a realtor and you hear this, it's the market's changing on. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen all the commission lawsuit stuff that's going on and everything, but listing agents are going to play a much bigger role in transactions going forward, most likely, and commission structures are changing. So agents are going to have to really be able to present themselves in a manner to buyers and sellers to say, hey, look, here's the services that I provide. Here's all the stuff that I'm doing. Here's why you need me. They have to give them their value proposition.
Yeah, so it's a different set of values now.
Yes. And so it's even more important going forward for agents to have a team of people that they work with on a regular basis. Because just dealing in the industry a lot, we get like the insurance guys always have that's roofers that work with them or whatever. But if you talk to a lot of agents, not all of them, there's plenty that have good ones, but you'll say, well, who's the roofing? I don't know. I mean, whoever you want to use. And you have to have that trusted person, because you got to have people coming out and talking to your buyers and sellers that are going to give them accurate information, because that's another level of the service that you're offering to your clients. And you have to have that team of professionals that you can refer out to on a regular basis.
And that takes me to a little bit of a touchy subject.
On the doll?
Touchy?
Are we touching the doll again? What are we doing?
God, you guys, I'm going to have to do this thing solo. So everybody's money driven, right? Everybody wants to make a buck, and I understand that.
You mean I do everything because I have
just a great heart? Yeah. And I've heard your negativity. You got a black heart, sir.
It's on the inside.
But so recently, I don't know if I want to call it a shakedown, but somebody basically said, if you want my business, you're going to pay me for it. If you want me to refer you business, you're going to pay me for it.
I'm not surprised by that one bit, by the way.
Okay. So, and I'm not, it's in this anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to go down that road, but it happens.
Yeah.
So, if you want to compensate people for referrals, whatever, that's on you. But I prefer to work off trust.
Sure.
Right. I don't want to start any relationship based off of
a transaction.
Money. Yeah. Okay. So I know there's a lot of that out there on the real estate side. Like, hey, I'll put you on every roof I can. You kick me back. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Just on principle alone, because like with that guy, I'm going to give you an honest opinion no matter what I see,
like it or not.
And if I'm money driven to make this sale go through, what do you think I'm going to say? Oh yeah, it's fine. Good luck.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. So just do your homework on the people that you're choosing. Don't do it just based off somebody giving you a $200 gift card to go eat at Del Frisco's. Really know that they're looking out for everybody's best interest. You know, I don't want to go put a roof on the seller side and just hope it goes away and never have to deal with it. But take ownership of what you're doing and do the right thing with the right people. And I get it. It's hard in our industry because there's so many people out there. So it's hard to kind of sift through and find that.
Well, like that guy
in the haystack.
Yeah, your guy. I mean, he met with 3 different roofers and kind of his head's still spinning.
Yeah. So that's why, as you said, Mike, having a realtor who works with, qualified, trusted people who are going to do the right thing no matter what, and aren't just looking to get that gift card. That's super
well,
important.
At the end of the day, realtors, if they're good, their goal is to make the transaction. They want to close the deal. Of course, everybody wants to close the deal, but they want that client to walk away from the transaction feeling like they were taken care of at the highest level, because you want to close more deals.
Right.
You don't just want to close that one.
They all have family and friends, and you want those referrals.
And that's what I feel like the relationships we have with insurance agents and realtors, it's based on that trust factor, right? It's not based on money. It's like, I want to make you look good.
Yeah.
Sure. You're scratching my back by getting me on a roof, but I want to make you look good. So you use me in the future. And maybe that homeowner and that homeowner's mother and aunts and uncles use us too. So we're going to do everything in our power to do it the right way.
Well, like you guys said on the last episode where you were talking about how when you go do repairs, you're not making any money on those. Like you're just going and maybe barely covering costs.
Yeah.
You're
building
helping
a new relationship.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's the same concept. You're just trying to help people. So that way in the future, when these situations come up, you're the first person they think of because you took good care of them.
Well, and you're saying how things are changing with lawsuits and all that. I mean, we've seen a definite difference in real estate deals for us over the past couple of years. You know, the market has been so hot. I mean, the sellers had every ounce of leverage in that transaction whatsoever. Buy the house, don't buy the house. I don't care.
There's 20 people behind you, so I don't care.
So I'd say the roof was so far down the list on things.
That's changing right now.
We have seen
it is. And so our real estate business has picked up quite a bit. I mean, I know the market is soft, but we're getting on more and more houses in comparison.
Because buyers are in control versus sellers, and they have a little more leverage these days. Yeah.
And so that takes me to my next negative story. And this is a pretty heartbreaking story.
Oh yeah. I'm just gonna bring it down. Turn the lights down.
Yeah, please do. You want me to talk real
Gotta get real close.
So this one, it was in the heat of the market. Gosh, probably 2.5 years ago, something like that. Lady calls me, says, Cody, we've recently purchased a home. We wanted to be close to our daughter. And when she said close, it was next door.
Yeah.
So I don't know about what that relationship's like. I know my wife loves my mom, but I don't know if she lives next door. But that said, so they were obviously very motivated to buy. So much that I think they did themselves a disservice because they wanted this house so badly. They basically waived the inspection, or not basically. They did waive the inspection.
So did they not get an inspection, or did they just?
They did not. Get
okay. Well, just as a side note, you can waive the as is. Like we're not, we're going to take it as is, but don't do an inspection.
Ever waive.
Always do an inspection.
They waive.
I think what are they? 500-600?
Yeah, like $5. Yeah, they're like $600.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the dollar amount.
Never buy a house, even brand new homes.
Yeah.
Get an inspection.
Yeah. Right. So they didn't. And these, they were educators for life, so they're not swimming in money or anything like that. Well, she calls me, says, hey, my insurance policy or my insurance company is telling me that I have 90 days to get this roof taken care of, or we're not going to have a policy at all. And just purchased the home, hadn't been in it, 30 days. I go out, I look at this roof, and it is destroyed.
I mean, just blasted.
One of the worst you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, this is a problem, obviously, but what kind of relationship do you have with the seller? And they say it was not a good relationship. I said, well, I knew when the storm had happened, I think 2 weeks prior to them buying this home, literally. And so I said, well, the best case scenario for you is you need to reach back out to the seller by any means necessary and see if they're willing to file a claim. That's best case. Then everything can be handled through insurance. You don't have to worry about it. You get a new roof and everybody goes off and they're happy. So they tried that multiple times. The seller wasn't having it. Yeah. They weren't going to do it. They didn't want to be involved. You bought the house essentially as is. You had every opportunity to take a look at all this stuff and you chose not to. So I'm sorry. That's it.
But that little side note, so people might not know that you can actually go back to the seller because it's the insurance company that had the policy at the time of the storm is still quote unquote on the hook for that.
Depending upon the time constraints.
Yeah, depending on that. So there is a way to go back, and we tried to have her go back and do that, and it just.
I wonder if there's anything they could do with the seller's disclosure thing. Only because, I guess it's what you know and what you don't know. But if there was a massive hailstorm 2 weeks before, I don't know.
Devil's advocate. Maybe the people were already out of the home or moved and didn't know. I don't know, but this area. This was a terrible storm.
It was bad.
Windows broken out,
car windows.
Windshield.
It was really bad.
It was a bad one. So it was obvious every roof was getting toasted up there. So unfortunately for them, they had no choice but to have us do the roof, and they had to pay cash for it. And there's opportunities. You can finance and you can do things like that, but you buy a brand new home, that's the last thing you want to do is shell out. Who knows? I think it's not a small roof.
Yeah.
$15,000.
Yeah.
How much money did you just pay to get into that house? And now you got to come up with an extra 15 that you weren't anticipating.
And it was all because back to that inspection fee of $500-600.
Yeah.
That would have at least had everybody stop down and think about it and figure out a way during the process. Save $500-600. And then out of pocket.
And that's what the I think sometimes buyers and sellers don't realize. Everything's negotiable.
Right.
So when you go under contract, the seller can say you're going to buy this house as is, right? And you can say, okay, we are, and you can get your inspection still. It just means you won't go back to them for minimal repairs. But even in that scenario, you can go back and say, hey, I know we said as is, and this is what we all agreed to, but the roof is destroyed. Yeah. So if you fix it, we'll keep going. If not, then we're going to back out, because you still have the right to back out.
It's too big of an item to just say, oh, okay.
Yeah, you can still back out of the contract. You're not like set in stone just because you agreed to buy it as is.
And Brad talked about this a lot last week with the insurance companies changing the way they are right now with writing policies. Having claims on your personal record, I guess, can make it much harder for you to get policies going into the future. So if I am a seller and I'm put in that situation where I've already sold you the home and you're asking me to go ahead and file a claim, nope, I'm not going to do it.
I'm not. I'm sorry.
Because who knows? I mean, maybe the law, or not the laws, but their policies or mandates change, and then it's not a big deal. But right now, I'm not going to file that claim unless it's not going to help them in any way.
That blows my mind, because how are you going to stop hail? Right. And if you're in one house and you get a hailstorm and you get a claim, and then you move to another house and you have a hailstorm and you make that's your fault. Like your premiums are affected by what you just attract hail. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Again, and we might need to get some more clarity from Brad on that. I mean, it's probably an hour worth of conversation there, but yeah, it's tough. So, I mean, if you're staying in your home and you're not looking to have a new policy written at any time, then so what? Go ahead, get your roof replaced. You don't have to worry about it or whatever. You file a claim if you need it. And that's what you have insurance for, right? Is when you have a need, you got to be able to fall back on them and have them take care of you. But you got to do it in the right time frames. You never want to have to go back and deal. It's a hard conversation anyway, because typically it's the realtors dealing with each other. You don't know that homeowner. Right. So I'm very apt to say no to somebody I don't know what they're looking for. Yeah. So yeah, just do your due diligence, get the right contractor, somebody that you trust that will hop up there and tell you the right answer. Have a realtor, as Mike said, who's going to have a book of people that they know and trust. Right. So,
well, and if you're going to sell your house, I mean, I know a lot of sellers don't do this because they do it for the wrong reasons. Because, well, if we don't know, then we don't have to say or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you have roof damage, they're going to figure it out. It's not something that's just going to fly. I mean, occasionally, like in this situation, it can fly under the radar, but for the most part, they're going to figure it out. Right. And if they figure it out, then you're going to have to fix it. So just skip all those steps. Right. And the minute you decide to list your house, have a contractor come out, a roofer come out and look
before
and see.
The sign goes up in the yard.
Yeah. Hey, you're good. You're golden. And again, that's the realtor's responsibility. You need to advise your clients. Say, hey, look, we're going to I would even say some cases like get your own inspection. I mean, especially in this market where buyers can be quickly scared away by any little thing, and you need buyers. Get your inspection, get you a roof check,
fix a few things,
get it to where it's ready to go. So when those objections come up, which they inevitably will, you've already, laid out a plan on what you're going to take care of.
You know, right. And because that's what we see a lot on the real estate side is option ends tomorrow at 5 and it's today.
It's today at 3:30. Can you get out there? I need photos. I need a report and an estimate for any repairs.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. Realtors are always on top of things.
They're punctual.
They don't wait till last minute on anything.
Which again, we love. The more roofs we get on, the better, right? And we don't mind doing the reports and putting everything together for them. But what if there is an issue? It's not that it's hard for us to get this stuff done. It's hard when there are issues to get things done. And I know options can change, but I would much rather know, a week in advance than finding out 24 hours that this whole deal is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So just do it quickly. You got any other good stuff?
I do have another good one. It's not as detailed because you just said earlier, you said sometimes it's the realtors talking and we aren't involved with the actual buyer or seller. And this is kind of one of those stories. So this particular seller was out of the country already, had sold or was planning to sell this home and was out of the country. And inspection report, same thing, came back. There's issues with the roof. Noted some hail damage on this one specifically. And so we went out there, took a look at it, and sure enough, there was hail damage. I traded a few emails with the buyer during the seller during the whole process, but really was just me and the real two realtors talking. But got involved early with it. We did, and as the time went on and the contract came up, we were able to get insurance involved, and believe it or not, this is 2 for 2. But insurance bought it on the spot right there.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Now I'm lying.
You're giving us all these fairy tale stories.
Single Christmas present, man. Telling lies.
No, it's true. And very similar to the other story that we were able to, they didn't change shingles or anything, but I had a relationship with both realtors because this guy was out of the country, and he was emailing me a couple of times because he was obviously very nervous. Like he's already moved, he's out of the country. needed this sale to go through. And so we were able to help him out because we did get in on the early side of it. And I just can't talk about how important that is. We just talked about it, but it is very important to get in on the early side of it so that we can give you that honest answer, or make the repairs needed, or make the option extended, or whatever needs to be disclosed can be disclosed on the early side of it. It just helps everybody out in the process. But we ended up getting that one done too. So
it takes the contentiousness out of the transaction, because whenever you're dealing with something, it's always very personal. When you have a buyer trying to buy a home that they're going to live in personally with their family, and you have a seller that are trying to sell a home that they've lived in forever, if you address issues up front and don't have to deal with them right there, because emotions take over. When something new comes up that they weren't expecting, then that person's upset and they're angry, and and then that feeds into we'll just walk away from this whole deal, right? But if you're the seller and you knew all this ahead of time, and you knew, hey, that's okay, like, here, we knew this was going to happen, like, here's this, here's who we use, here's our insurance company, whatever. Or you reach out to your insurance company ahead of time and you say, hey, we're about to sell our house, we think we might have roof issues, can you send out get ahead of all that stuff?
I've got paperwork.
Yes. Then when someone has a bad inspection or something comes back, it's not, I think I told you last time we did this with our foundation, is years ago, we had a house we were selling, and the inspectors had come back twice and said that they thought the house had foundation issues. And in both cases, the buyers backed out just immediately. And so we went and got an engineer's report. And it was fine. The house was fine. So we left that engineer's report on the counter every time that house got showed. And then the next buyer that came in bought it right away, because we'd already addressed the issue. Like, I know that your inspector is going to tell you that they think there's foundation issues, but here's a report that shows you from a professional third-party company that there's not.
Yeah. And from a negotiating standpoint too, we helped another realtor out just this week who's actually selling their personal home. You negotiate, you can say, hey, we are going to do whatever insurance deems in their contract, or I'm sorry, in the adjuster's proposal, adjuster's summary, we're going to do whatever the insurance company says. So you can negotiate with that. Now, again, I go back to my earlier point with that is, just because insurance says one thing does not mean it is wholeheartedly true. Right. So you have to be careful with that on the buyer's side. And again, have somebody that they tell you something and insurance says something otherwise, you got to be willing to fight for it if you truly believe them. But we see that in negotiating a lot. But it goes back to that tricky piece of, just because there's no storm damage doesn't mean that the roof is good. Right. So you got to know, but there's different negotiating tactics. And from our standpoint, truly, like, we love real estate deals. They're great for us. Like, when they go to close and they're paying us out of proceeds at escrow, we do that stuff all the time, which is great for a homeowner. Like, if you are having to do a cash deal, you're not necessarily wanting to go dig around in your bank account. You tell me this, Mike, no big transactions, right? Prior to going into a sale?
That's kind of I don't want to say it's a misconception. It really, what they don't want you to do is taking on debt. That's really what it is. It's just taking on debt, because that affects your ability to qualify. But a big transaction, if you can explain it, it's not a big deal.
Well, if you can't afford a roof, how are you going to do it?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Do you have enough money to be able to?
Right. Are you going to have to go get a loan to do that? Yeah. I'm assuming that's a red flag.
Yeah, that would be a red flag. Yeah.
So again, have us come out and say, yeah, we'll absolutely do the roof for you. Let's just take care of it at closing. It's great. We get to work directly with title. We send them the invoice. The day they close, we get a check. Yeah.
And that's the thing I don't know that a lot of agents understand either, honestly, because I've dealt with it a few times, where we can set all kinds of, because when you have a title company, they're the third-party intermediary of the funds. So whether it be roofing or whether it be foundation or anything of significance, you can have a contractor come in and submit a bid and say, hey, it's going to cost $15,000 to fix this particular issue, right? And then we can put that on the closing disclosure, because if it's a condition of the property to make sure that gets repaired as far as like the approval, then if it needs to be fixed, they can pay that at closing and then have the work done after.
Right. Yeah.
So, and the seller can pay for it, so it comes out of their proceeds, so the buyer doesn't have to do it, and we can still close on that deal, because now the money is going to be paid not from the buyer or the seller. It's going to be paid from the title company to the contractor. Right. And that's the bank's assurance that deal is going to get taken care of.
And it's great for us. It's super, super simple, because, usually a lot of times we're working on insurance deals, and we've talked about the 2-pay process, right? Or 2-check process.
Right.
So you get one check, and then you may have to wait a month before you get the final.
Right.
But say closing is somewhere in the middle of that, well, just go ahead and pay for everything out of proceeds. And as the insurance checks come in,
it's just
your money, and it replaces whatever you're out, from the equity that you have in the home.
Yeah.
So it's great for all parties. So we love working with realtors. These are just some of the good stories from Good Cop over there, and some of the negative stuff that you got to watch out for when you're doing it. One more thing I want to talk about briefly before we cut it, so we can sit here and tell stories all day long. But we had talked earlier about
I got the crown over there.
It's
Friday,
almost. So the class 4 impact resistant roof. So if you have a class 4 impact resistant roof on your house, that does not mean you have a force field over your house that is going to prevent hail from ever impacting your roof. And I think people hold that shingle in somewhat of too high of a regard. Okay. It is a good shingle, and it's definitely going to help you with smaller hail and things like that, but it is not going to prevent your roof from getting damaged if you have large hail, high winds, things like that. So the way they determine that your shingle is class 4 impact resistant, there's some testing that's been done. They take a 2-inch ball and they drop it, I think, from 20 or 40 feet in the air on a shingle, and it doesn't damage. Okay. Well, that's just gravity, right? How many hailstorms do you see where it's just gravity, just lightly dropping hail out of the sky? There's 60 mile an hour
dropping balls. Let's see what happens.
See how it does. So yes, it does add a level of protection. But if you've got 2-inch hail coming in at 60 miles an hour, or baseball size, whatever, I'm sorry, it's gonna damage your roof.
Yep.
So kind of like in that instance from the story I told earlier, that guy thought his roof was fine. It was not fine. It damaged that roof. And another misconception, I think, with the class 4 roof, it's that it's a thicker shingle. It's not a thicker shingle. It's the components that they put in that make it more resistant to kind of, or not resistant, but resistant to hail, but it has the ability to flex and come back.
Has
and all
a little
that.
give in it. Yeah.
So just be aware of that. The impact resistant thing when you're buying a home is great. I mean, it's great for you because your insurance rates are going to be significantly lower.
Savings.
The discounts on that are great. So don't shy away from it, but just don't go into it with the misconception that your roof is going to be fine forever. It's going to wear just like any other roof. And so after so many years and the heat and everything that it has to deal with, it's going to wear out. So,
well, this isn't a real estate story, but real quick, we were working with a contractor who was doing an addition to a home, and we went to go do some roof work for that and bid that piece of it. And I happened to be standing on the roof, and I was like, there's hail all over this roof. I don't know if this homeowner knows that there's hail on the roof. So we went down, we start talking to him, and the both homeowners were there, husband and wife, and they were kind of both like, well, that roof's only what, 5-6 years old, and it's one of those impact resistant roofs. And I was like, well, you got hail all over it. Like, it doesn't mean that it's like never gonna like deteriorate. You do have hail on.
Superman's been protecting us. He said it would be okay.
So ended up where by happenstance we saw the hail, we told them about it, they filed a claim, and we were able to work with them as well. But to Cody's point, it's not a force field. It's not something that's never going to be damaged. You still have to do kind of annual inspections and be aware that it can get damaged with
let me ask you guys, if you were buying a house and you were going to put a brand new roof on it, would you put an impact resistant roof on it, or would you just stick with a regular old shingle, and because you're going to have to fix it one day anyway?
So I just put a new roof on my house a couple of months ago, and I did not.
Who did your roof?
Man, it's
some
little
fly-by guy.
Just two chucks in a truck.
They were from Louisiana. They seemed reputable.
Yeah.
No warranty, but that was cheap. No. So we put the roof on mine, and I did not put an impact resistant roof on my house.
I don't think I would.
And
the insurance savings aren't worth the cost to put it up there, and you're going to have to get it replaced at some point.
Not necessarily.
Initially, I think that the savings are
pretty
significant. But over time, you eat away at those, and then you get to a point to where you could potentially, we talked about with Brad, you can get to that ACV policy where you're not getting the recoverable depreciation. We've got a customer that we've done some work for him in his business, and his home, I think that shingle's 28, 30 years old, and he's just begging me to come be able to find hail. And I'm like, I can't, there's just not hail on this.
How about now?
I'm sorry.
How about now?
Seriously.
Well, and so for 28 years, he's seeing, I don't know how long truly, but he's seeing his insurance rates just go up and up and up and up.
That's why he brought us out. And I've been out there 3 times, and he's done the math. How do I get out of this?
It's resistant to hail, but it's also resistant to your premium staying low.
Exactly. My bank account does not
so
like
that's
this
why
roof
I didn't do it. So truth be told, so the roof that I put on my house, it's a class 3 shingle. So it doesn't have the same rating as a class 4, but it still has some wind resistance and things like that in there that make it somewhat of a better shingle. And there is still a discount associated with that on my policy. Not as much as the class 4, but still a really good shingle. but it's not going to last forever, because ideally in X amount of years, I want to replace my roof again. So my insurance policies aren't through the roof.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
Literally,
Well, yeah. Insurance continues to go up regardless of what kind of roof you have. I mean, it's always going to go up, and it's going to continue. I guess it plateaus at some point maybe, but it goes up. And if you're sitting with and having one of those roofs that can't get replaced because it's, quote unquote impact resistant, then your premiums just they're going to keep going.
Yeah. And that's the deal. So insurance only pays for same, like, and kind too. So a lot of carriers at a time were saying, hey, why don't you put an impact resistant roof on? Why don't you put an impact resistant roof on?
Pay more for it.
You're going to have to pay for that out of pocket.
Can you downgrade? Like if you have if you have the impact resistant, can you go down to like what you did as shingle 3?
You can do whatever you want, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, do you have to pay for that?
You do not have to pay for a downgrade. The tricky piece, well, we won't go into all the insurance stuff today, but yes, you can.
Okay.
We see that from time to time, people with like Decra roofs or
you guys always throwing shade in my roof. Always.
It's a great shingle. It's going to last forever.
Yeah.
But no, we see people take off, like tile or old concrete tile and go back with shingles because, over time the tiles have started to crack and things like that. So no, it absolutely happens for sure. So anyway, story time's over.
All right.
That's all I got. But man, Eric, Merry Christmas. Everybody out there, Merry Christmas. And hope we provided a little education today. We'll continue to do some more after the first of the year. Probably bring some realtors on after we've gone so deep into real estate today, get their perspective on how we contractors help or harm the whole process. But we're looking forward to it, and hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we look forward to seeing y'all soon.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
See ya. You got to go. There you go.